Welcome to the Curate Your Life podcast with Temetria, where we focus on curating the life you've been dreaming of, one goal at a time. So this is part of our self-care series, and I have Dotty Posto with me. She is a fellow coach and friend, and we're going to be talking about how eliminating stress is a form of self-care. So welcome, Dotty, and introduce yourself and tell the people all the things that you want to tell them.
Hello, thank you so much, Temetria, for having me on. This is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
It is good.
So I am a consultant and coach. I do leadership and team development work with companies, kind of mid-sized to larger companies. And then I am also a coach, and I work mostly with people who are experiencing stress at a very high level. And it might be because of overworking. They're working 50 to 80 hours a week. It might be due to the care that they have to give their ill children, or just their children in general, or aging parents, or a stressful relationship they're in, whatever it might be, that their stress is just, they're at a stress level. Instead of being a baseline of calm, they're at a baseline of stress here. If up high is, up over your head, if your arm over your head, I don't know if you do video or not, now that I'm thinking about it. If over your head is like a significant stressor event, like you've been in a car accident or, an illness, we operate here in the middle on a regular basis. And so trying to help people first realize what it feels like to actually be in this calm, grounded type of mind, body, spirit, and then how to bring yourself from this constant state of cortisol, being marinated in cortisol, to, releasing some of that.
Right. Yes. And I think you're right. I think we don't realize that, I call it a hum, that constant kind of hum in your body is
Yep.
not where we're supposed to be. But
Correct.
I think we've gotten used to it with just the influx of information and stuff, and the cycle in our head, like all the things that we're saying in our head, everything that we have to do, everything that we should be doing, how we should be for other people, how other people should be for us. I think we have created this, what you said, this level that we think is normal, that is not where we're supposed to be vibrating.
Yeah, and it's and I think that I almost forgot I wanted to say that I don't think the goal is to eliminate stress. We are never going to eliminate stress. What we need to be able to do is to recognize it and know, is this an acute stressor? I was in a car accident, I was on a bicycle accident, I got cut off in traffic. Is this an acute stressor? And how can I release that to come back to baseline? Or is there a chronic stress situation where I'm operating at this chronic level of cortisol and adrenaline, and starting to understand the impact that it has on our health, which we can talk about, but helping people understand that when we're in this state, how can we start to really, over time, get ourselves back to a better baseline. We're never going to eliminate stress. No. It's just never going to happen. Stressors are going to happen. It's how we deal with it and how we take care of ourselves when it happens. And if we're in a situation where we know there's chronic stress, how are we taking care of ourselves? Because what I love about what Dr. Gabor Mate said, that our compulsive and automatic concern for others' needs while ignoring our own is a major risk factor for chronic illness.
I think you should say that again, because I think people realize
our compulsive and automatic concern for the needs of others while ignoring your own is a major risk factor for chronic illness. And I think we can also put in there the compulsive and automatic concern for what other people think, for other people's expectations, we can put all of those things in there, and ignoring your needs, your wants, your desires, what is best for you and your body, is a major risk factor for chronic illness. He used to he was a family physician for 20 years. And then he was also medical director of the palliative care unit. And he looked after where they looked after terminally ill patients. And he found factors over and over and over and over again in people who were dying of cancer, of Parkinson's, of complications from alcoholism, and all of these different neurological and all disease is really us not taking care of and completing those stress cycles and bringing our bodies back to a state of grounded calm.
Yes. Yeah. So in the first one of these where I kicked off this series on self-care, I said like one of the basic, and now you're saying, I feel like one of the most important things that we can do is just to get someplace quiet or take a second and ask yourself, what do I need? Like I have figured out, I used to come home when I was commuting from work, I'd come home and my door opened into the kitchen, and I would stop in the pantry and just spend some time there until I felt like I was like, okay, now I can go deal with the rest of my day, instead of asking myself in that moment, what do I really need? Not chips, So
Yeah.
there are other times when if you just ask yourself that and get quiet and listen to the answer without judgment, because it could be, I need a nap. I need to get away from this person for a few minutes. And our constant need, like you were saying, to please others or to help others or to do, doesn't allow us to be okay with that answer.
Yeah. And, if you are unwilling, one of the other things he talks about is that if you are unwilling or unable to say no, your body will do it for you in the form of illness.
Wow.
Or an accident. I've seen it with people who are in chronic accidents, who are chronically getting hurt. And it's, I believe, the same thing. And he talks about it is unwittingly, and it's not, it's not on purpose. These are things that we got programmed with at birth. I love how he talked about that there is this, we have a need for belonging. We have a need for connection. We have a need for attachment. If people know attachment theory, I'm not an expert in it, but it starts with that. And as a child, if we think that attachment is at risk, we will suppress our feelings. We will suppress our needs. We will suppress that so that we can keep that connection. And we continue to do that as adults. And when I was sharing this, because I was just so excited when I was listening to this teaching he did, I shared it with my husband, and he said, well, if it's programmed in us as kids, then what, then what's, we don't have what can we do?
Right.
It's just the way it is. And I said, no, we're adults now. We have the ability, as I'm sure, Temetria, you talk about on this podcast over and over, to begin to be the observer. First of all, to tune in. Can you even feel that hum? You talked about the hum here. I feel it, and I don't want to tap it because my microphone's here, but I feel the hum and the vibration here.
Mm-hmm.
I feel it in my chest. And I can feel it when I'm running sometimes, like while I'm exercising. And I literally have gotten to the point where I just stand and I breathe and I just let that energy go down into the earth. And one of the things you said about, asking yourself, getting yourself to the point of, what do I need in this moment? The first thing is getting yourself to the point where you can recognize that stress. What does it feel like? And noticing it in your body. And sometimes, and I think I shared this with you a couple of weeks ago, I was in an acute stress situation. And it's a chronic stress I've had over the last year with some things with family health issues and financial situations. And it all came to a head on a Monday morning. It was just, I was I was almost in a panic situation. And I normally in my life, in my 59 years, I have never really been an anxious person. And over the last year, I've really started to develop some anxiety. And it's been from some of these things, some family health situations, some business situations. And that morning, it just was crazy, like off the charts high, like up here.
Right.
And before I could even get to the point where I could ask myself what I needed or take a few deep breaths, I actually had to scream. I needed a release. My body was flooded with adrenaline, flooded with cortisol. And there's several different ways we can complete those stress cycles, they're called. And I actually did a post on this, I think both on Instagram and LinkedIn. One is, I screamed, and doing it from like a guttural scream. If you scream from here, you're going to hurt your vocal cords. So the first thing I did is I screamed several times. And then the emotion started to come through and I allowed myself to just feel it. For me, I often in those situations will cry. Not everybody does. I know one guy who, when he gets into a major stress situation, he laughs. So for everyone, it might be different. Let yourself feel it. Try not to spiral down into with the thoughts of it. Just purely feel it in your body. The third thing I did is I shook. I just shook. Sometimes just shaking your arms. If I get cut off in traffic, I do that because that adrenaline and cortisol, and you need to let it move through your body, because in the car, you can't run. Your brain is literally getting you in the fight, flight, or freeze, ready to run from the lion. Only our body doesn't know the difference between a physical lion and an emotional lion.
Right. Yes.
Which I'm sure you've talked about. So I screamed, I cried, I shook, I walked into a different room. I left my office and walked into a different room and walked around for a bit. Then I was able to actually sit in a chair and take a few deep breaths and actually visualize that stress going into the earth. Just really letting it release. Now, there's a whole nother practice that I have as well. I don't know if we want to talk about it, but that is just one physical way. If I know I needed to get it to my desk and get some things done. And I knew in that state of acute stress, that wasn't going to happen.
So when you did that, when you screamed, did it just come out, or were you intentionally thinking, I've got to, this is what I need right now. I need to do that.
I think it was that the anxiety was so high and I was just so frustrated that I wanted to scream at someone, which you don't want to do in these situations. You don't want to be, you don't want to treat other people, as I refer to it, as a garbage can with a hairy lid that you're lifting it up and,
Yes.
vomiting your emotions on other people.
But I think that is what happens. People don't know. And so when they explode, it is normally at somebody, in traffic, then you're flipping off somebody and doing whatever, which is very dangerous. So they don't know. So that's what they need. Yes. But how to channel it and how to do it.
Yeah. And like I said, if that happens to me in traffic, if I get cut off in traffic, I literally will shake my arm and shake an arm and shake my left leg so I can keep my foot on the gas, or if I have the cruise on, I try to shake because I know that I need to let that cortisol and adrenaline move through it needs to be digested, so to speak. It needs to be metabolized.
Right.
And if all you do is stuff it down and just ignore it and push it away, it does not metabolize. It gets stuck in your body.
Right. And it's going to show up some other kind of way.
Yes,
it'll like a blow up later.
Yes,
or
absolutely.
A meltdown or illness, like you said.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So I want you to talk a little bit more about completing the stress cycle. You said you had another process.
Yeah. So another process.
So people understand the stress.
Yeah. So what happens, a stress cycle is that an incident happens. Okay. You get cut off in traffic. I was in a very serious bicycle accident back in 2011. And I didn't do this then. I knew some about it, but I used some of the physical aspects. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things, because as I'm sure you've talked about, how we feel, those feelings of stress are going to impact what we can or can't do later. When we're in that stress, when that stress kicks in, when we experience a stressor, some people might call it when we're triggered. When we experience a stressor, whatever it is, somebody cuts us off in traffic, somebody we love yells at us, somebody, tells us on social media we're a jerk or an asshole or, whatever, that we're dumb and everything we're doing is stupid.
Right.
How we react, what we do is based on how we feel, and how we feel is based on what we're thinking. And I think the first thing to do is to this feeling is there. Let's just acknowledge that part of us. I think all of us have a way of sharing things when people say, well, how do you feel about that? And I've said it myself, and I know other people have said, well, part of me thinks this, and part of me feels this, and part of me thinks this, and part of me feels this. And so when you have this part of you, I was just doing this yesterday because I was feeling really disappointed and discouraged about something. And so just going through the process of acknowledging that part of you. Oh, yeah, I can totally understand. Having that conversation with yourself, which for some people might feel very awkward, having that conversation with yourself of, number one, acknowledging, so the first thing is really acknowledging. I see you, I hear you. Dr. Gabor Mate talks about this, that if when you're upset, if someone just says, hey, Temetria, looks like something's going on, do you want to talk about it? That alone, just having somebody to hold space. And so in this case, you're doing it for yourself in the example I'm using. So just having that conversation and showing, acknowledging, validating, I can absolutely see why you feel that way. Totally understandable. I get it. And letting yourself feel whatever is happening there. Showing compassion. Go ahead, I'm here for you, however long you need to process this. If you need to cry for a while, I'm here for you. And then getting to a point when that stressor, because what you're trying to do when you're completing that stress cycle is getting that adrenaline and cortisol to move through the body and to metabolize through the body, and we can do that to a certain degree from a physical perspective. And there's also that need to understand, what was I thinking that was causing me to react? Because, and then I can acknowledge, oh yeah, I can understand why you'd think that. I can understand why my thoughts are going there. And I can, I understand you, I support you. And I want to encourage you that disappointment and that discouragement, while it's absolutely real, it's totally valid. Here's some evidence of how, things are really pretty great. You can be disappointed in this result, and overall, things are really great. And here's a couple things to think about of reasons why. So you don't want to start there. When people say, oh, just shake it off, they're trying to get to that point of encouragement, and you haven't gone through the holding space, the acknowledging, the showing compassion, and getting through that, bringing that stress down to a point of understanding,
Right. So it would be like a friend, like you want to be the friend that you need. And
yes.
if a friend came in and said, oh, you just got to get over that, like before they heard everything, that would
Yes.
not be helpful.
Well, yeah, because then if somebody were to say that to you, Temetria, just get over it. Just get over it.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
Even madder than it was before, or even more upset, or even more hurt, right?
Yeah. You don't feel seen. You don't feel heard. And when we feel seen and we feel heard, we can then share our emotions versus expressing and vomiting them on someone.
Right. Yes.
There's a difference between having an emotion, allowing it. Like I said earlier, I allowed myself to cry the other morning. Expressing it would be for me to be sitting somewhere or talking to my husband and just like crying and rambling on and just, that what I always refer to as vomiting your emotions all over someone. And if I allow myself to process those emotions and really feel them, I can then share them. I can share them with you. I can share them with my husband. I can share them with a friend and express to them, here's what happened. Here's what I was thinking. And here's how I was feeling. And then they can be that friend. So I can do that with someone else, or I can do that for myself. The other way I look at it, I love how you give the example of that you are being your own best friend in helping you go through that cycle. You can also look at it as inside of you, and whether you believe in all of this or not, but we all have that child part of us. We have that small child part of us.
Yes.
And think about if you came upon a 4-year-old sitting on the curb crying, would you go up to that 4-year-old and say, get over it?
Right.
You can look at it as you're being the nurturing parent, maybe not the same parent you had or parents that you've experienced, but the nurturing parent to that inner child, to your inner child, to that part of you that is just so upset and so frustrated, who may be having a childlike response or whatever, whatever that response is, whatever that reaction is. You can be that nurturing parent. So I love that, can look at it as you're being your own best friend. Like, how would you want your best friend to help you through this?
Right. Yeah. And we need to think about that in more areas, right? Whatever you're seeking from somebody else, whatever you need from them, are you giving that to yourself first? Are you being that for yourself first? If you're looking for love, are you loving yourself first? If you're are you taking care of yourself? Self-care. And it is self-care. So
exactly. Yeah. And that stressor can happen because we have this, Dr. Gabor Mate refers to it as this compulsive and rigid identification with duty and roles and responsibility versus attending to our own needs.
right. And on the airplane, they say, put on your mask first before you put on somebody else's. So
exactly.
And it's really not selfish, because you have to have something to give, something to pour in. You have to have something to pour into somebody else's cup. So you have to fill yourself up first.
Yeah, you can look at it as you can't give from an empty cup. And some people might be that, oh, no, I'm not. And I think the hardest thing is that we don't see the immediate risk of operating at this stress level, or never completing those stress cycles and having that perpetual state of stress, that hum of stress, that constant hum of stress. We don't see it immediately. And it's killing us. Right. They showed that they studied women who were caregivers to chronically ill children, and they studied their telomeres, which are these things at the end of our chromosome. You can think of it as like the little thing at the end of your laces that keeps them from unraveling. And we have a certain length telomere, not this long, but we have a certain length telomere when we're born. And as we age, it gets shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. And so these women who were in their 30s and 40s, when they looked at their telomeres, they were aged 10 years by the stress of caregiving of a child, of a chronically ill child. And so part of the challenge is we don't see an immediate impact. And so helping people understand, first of all, can you feel it? And that's why, like in the fall, I have a retreat in Maine. And that's part of what we're going to work on, is that it's called Release and Restore, is just getting people to feel what it's like to be here at this low, calm, grounded level versus here. And really feeling, what is that difference? And I had a coach when I worked at Harley, and she was an ontological coach, which focuses on being. And it's interesting. I was speaking with a coach just this week this week or last week, and we were talking about this being versus doing. And she said, what if it wasn't a versus?
Ooh.
What if you could incorporate your being more into doing? Instead of it's here, I'm meditating, so I'm being, and then here I'm working and I'm not being, I'm doing. What if while we're working, we can feel that, just like when I'm on my run, when I've been noticing this on my runs in the morning, because I've been experiencing more of this chronic anxiety, I've been noticing when I feel it, and I stop in the middle of my run and I just I just feel it release. And when I'm running, I don't go through the whole process of, what am I thinking? Let's acknowledge it. Let's show some compassion for it. I probably should practice more coming back from the run and doing that,
Right.
or turning off my podcast or whatever I'm listening to and doing it and trying that while I'm running. That's a great suggestion to myself here. But just really, so those retreats that I'm doing are just helping people realize, what does this feel like? What does it feel like to have a lower base? Even if for now, it's just this, bringing it down a couple of inches.
Right.
What does it feel like to lower that stress baseline?
Yes. And I think it's important, and I think this will help people to know that just this level that we're on now, that kind of hum level, is not where we have to be. Like we can lower it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have a freebie. I'll give it to you so you can link it. It's called 3 Strategies to Work Less. Because I think that so many people are working 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and that is adding to the stress. The fact that you think you need to work those hours when in reality, working less is probably going to produce more. I mean, you and I talked about this, how that when you're not working into the evening, your ideas in the morning, you told me your ideas in the morning were more creative. You had more ideas and they were more creative.
You have to turn it off sometimes and let yourself recharge and reset.
Yeah. And when we work into the evening every night, or even multiple nights a week, when we're checking email before bed, it's interrupting that active rest that our brain needs. And that interruption periodically, even if it's just for a few minutes every night, that is interrupting that active rest, and it's not giving you the full recharge you need. It doesn't give your brain the full recharge you need. Your creativity, your resourcefulness, your problem solving is all diminished when you're working every night into the evening, not even every night, but working into the evening multiple nights a week.
Yeah, that's true. Awesome. Thank you for this. I do think that is self-care. It's so important. And that's why I'm doing this series on self-care, because it goes beyond manis and petties. And I love all of that. But caring for your whole self on a regular basis. And it's a big picture thing, not just.
Yeah, and it's doing it on behalf of your future self.
Mhm.
And I don't think a lot of us think about that, I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for me because, and part of it is really getting real of how long do I want to live? And getting into it and understanding, what am I doing now that could be, impacting that?
Right.
Is me, that's just like, and we talk about active rest, is me sitting on social media or binging Netflix every night. That is not active rest. And active rest doesn't mean you have to go work out, but it's doing other things with your mind and your brain besides numbing and, compulsively doing things that are, that don't really give your brain the ability to recharge.
Okay, so tell us more about your retreat.
Okay.
People where they can find you, and I will also link the webinar, the video from the doc in the show notes. I'll link your retreat and anything else that you send me to link your freebie. But tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, and I'll get that page up, because I don't have the full page for people to sign up for the retreat, but I will get within the next few days a page where people can at least express interest. And then it might take me another couple of weeks to actually get the page because I just got the dates the other day. And I need to confirm with my yoga instructor, but right now the dates are October 17th to the 20th. And it will be in a little place called Little Good Harbor, Maine, which is on the coast. It's a beautiful, I mean, just a beautiful house that we'll be in. Space for 10 women. It is a women's retreat. So sorry, guys, maybe we'll do a co-ed retreat another time, but this one's for women. And we will, so the cost of the retreat will include everything in the retreat, lodging, food, the retreat, and then transportation will be on your own. But I'll have a page set up for people to get information on that. And it'll have yoga and some photography. We're going to be using photography as a way of introspection and some journaling and things.
Oh, wow.
And then, so that'll be fun. That will be, again, October 17th to the 20th. And then I also have the freebie, which will have a link in the show notes as well, of 3 strategies to work less without sacrificing success.
Yes. It does not have to be an either or.
Yeah, it doesn't, because you're actually, what people don't understand is they are diminishing their returns by continuing to work after hours.
Right. Yeah. It's just like driving a car. You have to put gas in it, change the tires, check the engine, and add oil.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't just drive it without taking care of it.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, because I think this is very important. And I think this is like baseline self-care, is eliminating stress as much as possible or learning ways to deal with it.
Yeah.
Like
processing, learning how to process the stressors in our lives. And I think eliminating the chronic stress is, there's a point where you can and should try to eliminate the chronic stressors. The acute stressors are probably still going to happen. And just getting to that point where you can feel and understand what are the chronic stressors and how can I start to move those away from my life.
Yes. That's the Curate Your Life process. Anything that's not serving you in the way you want your life to look, let's move it on out. Let's get rid of it. Okay. Thank you so much. This was so important. I appreciate you being here. And like I said, I will put everything in the show notes that we talked about today.
Okay. The other thing, Temetria, that I have is I also, as you are a coach and you have your Curate Your Life program, I also have a program to get your life back, get your time back. And it is a 6-month program where I work with individuals over the 6 months, 2 to 3 times a month. We meet and we really work on getting some awareness of what are the things that are causing this chronic stress and helping people to, over time, bring it down and learn how to keep it at that, have it at that reduced level and know how to work with the acute stressors as well as how to kind of keep those chronic stressors at bay.
Awesome.
So I do have that one-to-one coaching I do as well.
Okay, great. Yes, we'll link all that in the show notes. And if you want more information about the Curate Your Life process, that information will be in the show notes too. You can schedule a consultation with me, and you can come over to the Curate Your Life Facebook group. And that is a group of like-minded women who are creating lives that they love. Until next time.